Hello, everyone. My name is Maurice Hamilton, and welcome to our show. Actually, we have a show now where humanity meets technology. And I have my co-host here, Kelly.
Hi.
And today we have a really great conversation with Andrew McCain. Andrew McCain's with the CEO of McCain Power Systems, if I'm saying it correctly. So we're going to have a really great conversation and answer some of those questions that you may have thought about but didn't ask anybody about power and energy. So Andrew, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Thanks. We're really happy to have you here. So Andrew, I like to start our conversation up in more what I call like a Genesis question. How did you actually start your company today? And can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do and actually how you provide services to the market?
Yeah, so started in 2020 during the middle of COVID. I just started buying and selling equipment. And it was really at the beginning brokering equipment. So I'd find a buyer, put them two together, and it was more of a consulting kind of gig. Slowly started building inventory, and then one turned into two, and so on and so forth. So we buy and sell generators, engines, compressors, pretty much anything on the power system side. We also have a rental division, a logistics division, and a service branch. So there's 4 companies that we all do the same thing: sales, service, logistics, and rental.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of the equipment that you actually provide for, is it a consumer? Is it retail? Is it more of a business type, industrial type operations? Who are your typical clients?
Yeah, so industrial, commercial grade generators is typically what we do. We do have, we're a Kohler distributor for residential, so we'll sell some for that. But yeah, mainly commercial industrial on the generator side, a lot of oil and gas, a lot of rentals on that side of it, a lot of plant-based business for, all the gas compression, CNG, LNG plants, stuff like that.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. In our being an IT company, some of the projects that we come across, we'll see the blueprints, and we'll do the low voltage, and we maybe even run the high voltage cabling for the companies. And sometimes we'll see that cabling, and we'll see the electrical part of it, where an organization may be putting a huge generator outside, because we know that we're covered for like T1, T3 lines coming from the north side of the building and maybe from the south side of the building. So we have that redundancy. How do you guys look at it when you're actually putting in a generator for an organization? What kind of questions do you ask that particular organization so that you can actually fit them with the right generator that's going to actually fit their needs?
Yeah, it's going to be direct conversations with the engineers that company's hired. So electrical engineers for that project, they're going to have a load profile, a one line diagram. We're going to take a look at that, their load profiles that's coming in. We're going to size the generator based off of that. You can oversize the generator, believe it or not. You just don't want to throw a 2 megawatt generator at something that's only requiring 150 amps, right? So we really rely on the experts on that side to size it. But then we're going to ask some questions on the load profile, what this is going to be powering, right? If it's life safety equipment, what measurements, because there's some generators need to be NFPA 110. It needs to be able to start within 10 seconds to provide that, life safety devices to come online. We ask questions like, man, can you never lose power? We've had a couple companies that we've dealt with that have conveyor belts and stuff that really can't go down. So they need something actually between the utility side and the generator side. It's called a UPS system, right? An uninterrupted power supply. You're very familiar.
Very familiar with
And
those.
so the battery power provides that 10 seconds, and so it's uninterrupted power. So we ask all those questions so that we're trying to provide the best solution for the customer and not just throw a generator at somebody or an engine or whatever. That's not what the small businesses, right? We're trying to provide solution-based deals for customers.
Okay, so you're going to fit it to where their needs.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you another question. This is going to kind of like leeway into another segment where we're talking about energy from more of a macro view. When you're fitting that client for that generator that they're looking for, are you looking for like propane? Is it gas? I don't know too much about it. How do you actually look at that and say, look, there's additional cost besides the actual cost of the generator, and there's more than just when you actually build it out there. Here are the additional costs that you have to think about when you factor this into your operations.
Yep. So depends a little bit on what the engineer is spec'd in. A lot of times they have their mindset on, we want a natural gas generator, we have a natural gas line. We want there never to be a never-ending supply of gas to this generator. We've done deals in Florida and on the coast where they're like, we never want power to go out, so we want natural gas. Well, they don't know that the law, they actually shut down natural gas within 50 miles, like in Florida, of the coastline when disasters happen. So you could put a generator on something that has no natural gas. So I think relying on the experts of talking to the engineers, what they've spec'd in, and then talking to them about what kind of runtime. So if it's a diesel backup generator, you're going to size the generator, the tank, for a 24 or 48-hour tank. And then once it goes out, maybe help them with a redundancy plan for fuel drops so that they, every 48 hours, if that's running at 75% load, every 48 hours they're having a Moffitt or some other fuel company come out there and do fuel drops. But yeah, that's typically spec'd in by the, hey, we want this, and then we'll supply that.
Okay. So here's a question, and this question, Kelly may interject on this one as well. So we spent a considerable amount of time in California about a year and a half ago. And there's two things that we really noticed a lot of. We noticed a lot of not only the windmills, and we noticed that when actually West Texas here, there's a ton of them all over the place. But we also noticed that in California, there are not only the wind turbines, but there are a lot of solar farms. I'm talking, you can go miles and miles and miles and you'll see these solar panels all over the place. So when it comes to, when you think about on a more of a macro scale, I think it's actually more than just people just putting up a wind turbine or with a solar panel for it. How would you actually go back and say, if we look more into society and saying, how could we actually be impacted by this? What are your thoughts when it comes to actually looking at deciding a wind turbine or a solar panel or some kind of alternative energy? I know there's a lot of different factors to consider, especially when it comes to more like, and I want to kind of pinpoint a little bit better, a little bit more specific, when it comes to like industrial or you're working with organizations. How do you actually look at that and say, okay, you may want to consider an alternative?
I think that most of those right now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know a ton about the solar and the wind on how it's distributed for the power. I would say that a lot of that is government regulated from the utility company, and they're putting those in and selling that during those peak times back to utility company. Solar is one of the only ones, in batteries is only where you can actually store the energy and then distribute it out. The problem with anything like wind is if the wind's not going, you're not producing power. And you can only store so much power, right, in batteries and in solar. So, I think it can help fill in the gaps. I think that there are, some really good things that companies can look at to be a barrier between what they're using on maybe a reciprocating engine side for backup power, and then incorporating the wind and the solar. It just has to make economic sense for the companies and for the businesses, and then kind of make some decisions based on that.
That makes sense. And we're going to talk a little bit more about regulations in our next segment here. But one of the things that Kelly was mentioning earlier about when you think about the wind turbines, we're thinking about on the coast and out in the different oceans out there, and how that's actually have an impact on the whales and maybe some of the animal and the wildlife, And so those are other factors that I would think that you probably want to consider as well.
I think that when we talk about green energy and we talk about alternative energy, I think they're great options. The problem that I have is, with my background working at a variety of different companies, I worked at Siemens, I worked at TF Cable, which did cabling for the wind turbines. I have a broad spectrum of places that I've worked. We're not always honest about the negative side of it. And when you start working with it, it's really important, I think, to be upfront and transparent about the struggles and the challenges that we have, because it can be something as small as a refrigerator or an oven or a car. You get one of these EV cars. What happens when the battery goes dead? Yeah, you can run it on gas, but it's not running. You got to pay to replace that battery. What about the battery itself that's going to, how are we going to get rid of it? The things that it takes to make them. just generate the battery. We talk about we want to get rid of oil. We want to get rid of fracking and things like that. Okay, ladies, well, get ready to get rid of your leggings because that's used to make those. And I don't know, one of my girlfriends is willing to get rid of those.
Yeah.
And so we need to have the other side of it and just know what is going to happen with it. When we were younger, the lights went out, we dealt with it.
Yeah.
You lit candles, you played games. Now,
Yeah.
I don't have my phone. I can't do my business. I can't send this email. We literally can't function on a normal society without our electricity. And so what's your take, your expertise and your take on that?
Yeah. I think having an honest conversation of what those power sources look like. We all want to live in a better world. We want to create it for our kids, our grandkids. Nobody's denying that. Nobody in oil and gas is denying that, but we have to have an honest conversation of how is power made, right? I think most people are pretty naive on that side.
I agree.
But there is nuclear, there is renewable, and then there is fossil fuels. That's really all we have, right? And so when you're talking about clean energy or green energy, you have to really look at the negative on that side too, to say, does this outweigh the positive?
Right.
The United States has been the best nation in the entire world, hands down, of reducing our emissions level since the early 2000s. There are some big players out there that are increasing that. We need to keep being a leader there, but we need to have an honest conversation. And I'd love to be on here. We could talk in depth about that, about the negatives of the wind, right? Yeah, it has a negative effect on whales and fish. All the oil that the wind turbines, each one of those wind turbines requires 300, 400 gallons of oil each, right? And when they go out, guess what needs to replace on there? There's a generator on that, a diesel generator that starts and black starts that thing. So a lot of people just don't know this, and we need to have an honest conversation and be willing to hear both sides and come to an agreement to say, let's keep pushing innovation further of trying to create good, clean energy, but then also not stop our economy and stop the money flow of things, because everybody loves their leggings and they love shoes and they love their braces, and that, all of that comes from oil and gas.
Jumping in your car.
I have a couple of questions for you, but I want to have this commercial break first. I want to talk a little bit more about the future, and also talk about how regulations and government, how they actually impact, and what can we do as consumers to actually even increase the footprint of green energy. We'll be right back after these messages.